Hello friends, this is Anton, and you are on the Blackroom channel. In fact, what we are going to talk about is probably the most important component of any home theater and cinema hall, without which everything else practically pales in comparison. If this is not in place, then almost all the money spent on a home theater will be wasted, and that is the center channel of your audio system. Let's talk about the main point. In fact, I often say in my videos that the center channel is the most important, the key speaker. It cannot be neglected and it cannot be compromised. It is necessary to approach it quite meticulously, considering its placement, model, size, and so on. It is not just the most important for no reason. It is simply because it has the greatest influence on what you will hear while watching your favorite movie, series, or any other content. Even if you are listening to a concert, a lot of super important information and the voice of the performer are often encoded specifically in the center channel of the multi-channel audio track. As for movies, I won't even mention it. Here, it's simply impossible to overestimate its importance. About 80% of everything you hear, especially the informational part, the informational component of the film, which includes dialogues, the dialogues of your favorite characters, all their emotions, experiences, intonations, and voices, are all recorded here and played through the center channel speaker. The most frustrating thing is that people very often cut their budget when setting up their home theater or cinema room, specifically on the center channel. Apparently, they do not understand the importance of the fact that here, saving is the word that should be excluded from your vocabulary when it comes to the center channel of a home theater or cinema. How did it all begin? The golden age of Hollywood refers to the era of silent films before sound, and when sound was introduced, everything changed. Sound began to develop quite rapidly. And of course, the quality of sound in theaters improved as companies competed with each other, inventing newer and newer audio systems. And speakers, such as JBL and Lansing. A significant progress was made in the early 20th century, when sound in cinema was introduced. It was they who developed the first acoustic systems for public movie theaters. For a long time, the sound was mono, and only at some point did it become stereo. And this again slowed down for several decades the development of how fundamentally sound engineers create cinema and what they operate with in terms of sound, and accordingly, how the audience heard what was happening on the screen. Then came George Lucas, who wanted to revolutionize everything and did so by creating the film Star Wars. It was there that additional effect channels were introduced, effects that created a sense of surround sound for you. Initially, there was one monophonic channel at the rear, and then it gradually transformed into what we now know as 5.1 sound. And it was only after the effect channels were created that the desire arose to ensure that the dialogue always came from roughly the location of the movie character's face. When a character's face is shown in a close-up from the waist up, their mouth and face are usually positioned somewhere in the middle of the screen. And most often the camera also focuses somewhere in the middle where the person or what is happening on the screen takes place. In order for the sound image to be clearly tied to what is happening on the screen, the action usually takes place somewhere in the middle. Moreover, this is not only for people who sit exactly in the middle of the screen throughout the entire audience, but also for anyone else in the auditorium, so that the most important information is always positioned right in the center of the screen. It was precisely then that an additional, effectively fifth channel for dialogues was invented and created. Initially, it only worked to reproduce voice, to reproduce dialogues. This speaker is located in the middle behind the screen in a public cinema. No matter where you sit, whether in a small or large theater hall, you will always hear the voice coming from where it should come from, right from the center of the screen. This is the main point. When you listen to stereo, if you shift to the left or right relative to the axis of the room, the sound of the character, if it is coming from two speakers, will jump quite noticeably to one of those speakers to which you are getting closer. To the right or to the left, this illusion that a person is speaking when they are positioned in the middle of the screen collapses, and you stop believing it. And when the center channel is present, and the voice always comes from the center, no matter where you sit, you always hear the character as the director intended. And so, when the topic of home cinema and home theater emerged, well, it appeared a long time ago in America, but the center channel actually came into existence only when the DVD standard was introduced. DVD and Dolby Digital, which provided the sound for this standard. And now this center channel has become available in home theaters. Its purpose is exactly the same. To tie the dialogue voice that comes from your screen, making the voice come directly from the screen, was unfortunately impossible. And by the way, it still remains impossible. That's why, for example, I have the center channel placed under the television. However, Its correct positioning and the choice of a specific model are extremely important aspects. And immediately all the manufacturers started churning out these little speakers, 5.1 sets, and often, unfortunately, they saved on the design of the center channel and made choices that truly negatively affect the sound. Not only did they save on its design, speaker quality, size, and depth to match the left and right channels, but very often, this speaker was produced and designed as an afterthought. The same speakers were used as those found, for example, in the Bookshelf series. An additional identical speaker was added, and that was it. Moreover, the main flaw in the design of the center channel, and by the way, it can also be noticed here. I have a fairly expensive large center channel, but the design flaw that was incorporated at the design stage, I'm afraid, is present here as well. After all, this is not a silk dome tweeter. And this arrangement on a single axis and the two-way system, here it is possible to have 2.5 ways, so at least I don't notice this nuance here. But for most, especially inexpensive center channels designed to be placed somewhere below or above the television in a home theater in the living room, this is the kind of open design. They are all designed based on the MTM principle. This includes a midwoofer, a tweeter, and another midwoofer. And between them, accordingly, there is what is called overlap or interference. When you have a portion of the frequency range that is reproduced by the high-frequency speaker, it is also reproduced by the low-frequency and mid-frequency speakers. And in a certain area, it spreads out like this. In the center, if you sit directly opposite it, everything is great, perfect. All you need to do is lean a little like this and get into the zone that creates this interference. And this interference is also spreading wider and wider, let's say, onto the couch. You end up in a zone where certain frequencies are simply missing, and you can't do anything about it. The only way to combat this is by changing the design of the audio system altogether. For example, by adding another driver or half a driver. That is to make this band play lower, this one a bit higher, and this one to play, well, as it plays actually the highest frequencies, mid-range and highs, or add another strip, make another tweeter, and shift it higher, or at least shift this tweeter higher relative to this horizontal axis. In general, this is probably the biggest, most common curse and problem, as well as a mistake in the design of acoustic systems. Creators of home theater audio lines seem to consciously make this choice for the sake of saving money, because this audio equipment is beautiful, either in veneer or lacquer, as in this case. It is designed to stand out and please the eye of the owner under the television, while also delivering quality sound from the center channel when the owner is watching a multi-channel track, enjoying their favorite movie or series. 95% of people firstly do not know about this, and secondly they do not hear well enough to catch that moment. This is very clearly heard on the test pink noise if we apply a test signal here. In the form of pink or white noise, and by moving your head back and forth along the sofa, you will definitely hear the difference if the acoustics have this gap, so to speak, in the design, and this flaw. But the biggest crime, in my opinion, is if you create a home theater system, even a budget one, in the living room, and you save on the center channel by not installing or buying it at all. Let it be inexpensive, let it be entry level from a weaker lineup, but install it, set it up, and listen to the dialogue as it is intended. Otherwise, the dialogue from the stereo system will always sound somewhat phantom. It will very rarely come from the correct location, only if you are sitting exactly in the middle between the left and right channels. You will never achieve the clarity and intelligibility of speech that you can get even from an inexpensive center channel. Therefore, the first speaker I always recommend buying when upgrading a stereo system, and if a person is gradually purchasing their multi-channel system for watching movies, is to start with stereo, then add 1 or 2 subwoofers, better yet, 4 if possible, to have a solid foundation. However, I would actually recommend starting with the center channel first, and then filling out the system with a good subwoofer and bass. We position and recognize sounds best in this front hemisphere or even in this front plane, because the higher we raise the azimuth, the worse our ability to recognize where the sound is actually located in space becomes. And from behind, we also practically do not clearly understand when he is back there somewhere. First, the front and then the rear plane, especially on the sides, when positioned strictly at 90 degrees, also suffers greatly in terms of positioning, because the second ear cannot easily recognize the difference in the incoming sound to the left and right. This is how we understand where the sound is coming from, based on the difference and the speed at which it arrives in the left and right ear. And the worst part is that we struggle to perceive sound positioning directly above our heads. As soon as we tilt our heads, it becomes easier for our ears. They are not designed to precisely determine sound that is coming directly between them, so to speak. But in the center, when it happens from the front, we can say with absolute certainty that the sound is coming from here, 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 or right from here. Therefore, the center channel is super important acoustics, and you can easily buy it and create a 3.0 system, even without subwoofers. When you start upgrading your home theater, only after that do you set up the rear speakers for the 5.1 system and fill it with a certain number of subwoofers so that you have a good foundation and you believe it when the ground shakes beneath your feet. But if, my friends, you don't take my word for it, I invite you to the open house days at the Blackroom company, of which I am the founder. About once every 2 months we hold open house days at our showroom in Moscow, where anyone can sign up and come to fully appreciate how a real Dolby Atmos home theater in a 9.1.6 format, costing around 40 million rubles, sounds and looks. It clearly demonstrates how important the center channel is. In every video we showcase, you will believe in what you see. It truly happens right before your eyes, and the center channel has perhaps the most important influence on this. I will leave the link in the description. Visit the website, sign up, submit your application, and simply write that you want to attend the open house. And if you are building a house and have a home theater or cinema planned, be sure to leave a request and come visit us individually. We will show everything, tell you as well, conduct a demonstration, and share our approach and philosophy in creating home theaters. Well, if you happen to live somewhere far away, I don't know, in Kamchatka or in some completely remote region or country, please leave an application as well. We have a wonderful option for a Zoom tour of our showroom about how we build home theaters. We will literally meet for 15 minutes on Zoom, show you everything, and tell you all about it. We operate throughout the country, we work in the CIS and even abroad, in Dubai and the Middle East. So feel free to reach out if you want a real home theater Blackroom. What other mistakes do people make when they buy a center channel and install it in their home theater? Probably one of the common mistakes is placing it, first of all, not in the center of the screen. Sometimes there's a spot over there on the right, and here I'll place the receiver. It looks nice. It's convenient, I like it. But then your voice will come from the edge of the television, which is also not correct. Make sure to position it as close to the wall as possible, ideally aligned with the plane of the television. If there is an opportunity, for example, to place the television directly on the center channel and it won't be affected, or to use a special shelf for it, then that can also be done. That is, it should be placed as close to the screen as possible so that if it can be positioned on the plane of the screen, that would be ideal. Usually, it's more logical to place it below the screen, because if it's above, the source will be too high, and your left and right channels will end up much lower than the center channel. The classic example is how I have it set up in my living room. It simply sits on a shelf below the television. I would gladly push it in there, and that's fine. Its port for the bass reflex is not even at the back, but right here, at the bottom between the stand. But there is a danger that the sound will reflect off the nightstand itself. In other words, it travels from the speaker to the cabinet and then, along with the reflected sound, overlapping and subtracting certain frequencies from each other, will reach your ears. Do you really need that? You don't need that. The sound may get spoiled because of it. If you are pushing the center channel back and leaving an empty space on a shelf in front of it, then place some absorbing foam, absorbing material, or acoustic foam here. Somehow, you will get rid of this effect. However, I didn't want to place anything here to collect dust, so I positioned it on the surface of the cabinet, and it plays direct sound right into my head when I sit on the couch. And what else is important? It's important to adjust it a little more, for example in height. As I have done, with the help of special rubber feet, the center channel is slightly elevated, its front edge is aligned, and the sound is directed more towards my ears rather than my stomach, for instance. There is indeed dispersion, especially if it is a dome tweeter, as it has quite a round dispersion, spherical in shape. Dispersion is how an acoustic system effectively radiates sound in space. In other words, it is roughly the angle of propagation of certain frequencies. Moreover, it is usually not a constant. As the frequency increases, the sound often turns into a flashlight effect. The more precisely you aim the speaker at your ears, especially with a dome tweeter, the more it behaves like a flashlight at the highest frequencies, with a dispersion angle of about 10 degrees. Conversely, the lower the sound frequency, the more multipolar it becomes, even extending beyond the acoustic system. For example, bass plays at a full 360 degrees. This dispersion should be managed by knowing its characteristics for a specific speaker. We either adjust it or leave it as is, but most often it makes sense to adjust it towards the center of your sofa. The next mistake many installers make in home theaters is for clients. They hang a large projection screen or television and want to create a clean design. Then they just throw the center channel on the floor. God willing, if we can tilt it a bit upwards, God willing. But in this case, the voice and everything emitted from the center channel comes from the floor. Therefore, at the very least, if there is nowhere else to place it and you cannot put a shelf under the center channel or a screen down to the floor, so to speak, and it is not sound transparent, then at least raise it up. Aim the center channel at the viewers and they will thank you. Like any other acoustic system, the center channel should not be placed inside a cabinet. If you have a cabinet under your TV like I do, then placing the receiver here and pushing it back deeper is not the best solution. If the shelf and this niche are close to the dimensions of the acoustic system, then it's not a problem. But if it is significantly larger and deeper, the speaker placed within it will create some internal additional resonances, because this specific area and volume have their own internal reflections, so to speak, and this will negatively affect the sound. It is always bad, so to speak, to place a speaker somewhere in a cabinet. If you are going to install it, make sure to push it as far as possible to the edge of the cabinet, completely filling it with some sound-absorbing material, either acoustic foam or something else. Sometimes it is also covered in front with a nice fabric grille. Ensure that this fabric grille is made of acoustically transparent material. Well, if we touch upon real cinemas, the center channel, by classic standards, is always positioned exactly in the center, roughly speaking, of your large projection screen. The screen is made either from sound transparent fabric, perforated vinyl, or specially woven vinyl material, which also allows sound to pass through well. And the acoustic system for the center channel is set up exactly the same as the left and right channels. Exactly no worse, no less, no more compact, nor of another form factor, nor from another line. Exactly the same, because the left, center, and right channels are the three most important speakers in your home theater, and the center channel has superiority over all of them. Just one model, exactly identical, like the left and right channels. And when you do this, there is an inherent possibility to move stereo images across the screen as seamlessly as possible. And when something happens there, it flows across the screen so naturally that you fully believe what is happening in the movie. And stereo images are not just what happens between the left and right channels, as we are used to. Stereo is a kind of phantom image that we reproduce between any two sound sources. It can be between the center channel and the right speaker, or it can be between the right channel and the right surround. Stereo images can also travel between the right channel and the right ceiling channel. And when everything is so well designed, thought out, and the room is properly set up with acoustic panels and diffusers, all perfectly calibrated, then these stereo images fly around the room like a fly in nature, and we believe in it. And a huge number of details influence this, which we take into account when designing and implementing real home theater's Blackroom. But let's return to the center channel. Friends, the roughest, most serious mistake when you are creating a home theater and could do it perfectly is to not do it. Take, save, and replace it with a similar speaker as on the left and right channels. Roughly speaking, a castrated, horizontally placed center speaker that is designed to work in constants. There is no point in placing the center channel horizontally behind a sound transparent screen, but this is done all the time. I constantly receive both projects and photographs of real projects where there are normal left and right channels, and sometimes even huge floor-standing speakers with horn drivers. And the center channel from the same series, yes, the classic one designed for the TV. Why are you putting it in a real cinema hall? Buy another floor-standing speaker like that, and that will be the key to success. If you happen to have external amplifiers, an audio processor, and a center channel, don't think that it doesn't matter for the center channel to have the same quality amplification as your floor speakers for the left and right channels. That's not the way to think. Provide the highest quality and ample amplification for the center channel speaker so that it can perform easily. so that it has a reserve of dynamic power to reproduce sharp sounds like gunshots. Damn it, they are practically all reproduced through the center channel. Just like ideologies, the entire dynamics play a significant role in the success of believing in what is happening on the screen. It is precisely the dynamics that provide you with realism. A lot of what you watch in movies makes you believe that you are actually there with these characters. Sharp, loud sounds that then suddenly fade away. This is all about dynamics, and quality amplification is also an important component to ensure that dynamics are present in the sound. There are also some small nuances and life hacks. Let me share one with you. You can see that the velvet Alcantara is glued on top here. Alcantara on glue. Do you understand why? It's to prevent the screen from reflecting off the glossy finish of the center channel. It is lacquered. High gloss black lacquer. But everything that happens on your screen will reflect from here, and it will hit your eyes again, and this will distract from what is happening on the screen. This is a small, simple, and very neatly executed life hack. I highly recommend everyone to do this. Friends, let's each share in the comments what audio system we have, which manufacturer it is from, what format, what model line, and most interestingly for me, what center channel we are using. And also, friends, if you enjoyed this in-depth analysis of a specific speaker in a home theater and would like me to continue with a series of such videos, for example, discussing surround speakers and ambient channels, please leave a thumbs up in the comments and like this video, of course. In one of the upcoming videos, I will definitely talk about surround sound systems. I will share everything I know about them, including all the nuances, their importance, and how to avoid mistakes when choosing the correct surround channel. Be sure to subscribe to the Blackroom channel. We already have over 360 videos here in 5 years. A whole encyclopedia of everything related to home cinema and theater construction has accumulated. It wouldn't be difficult for you, but it would really please me. After all, it's time to earn that silver button. Well, as always, it was Anton, the founder of Blackroom, with you. I'm sure we'll see each other soon in new videos.